few higher clouds here and there. That's the latest from the Channel 2 Weather Department. I'm Rob Marciano. Weather on the hour, every hour, right here on the Power of 2.
On World News Tonight this Thursday, NATO admits it was an American pilot that bombed and killed civilians in Kosovo. We'll take a closer look at the pressure a pilot is under. The DNA sets 2 men free. They were convicted of murder. It took 12 years. And our regular report on cutting-edge technology. Tonight, the smarter appliances, the milk carton that tells you it is almost empty. The 21st century kitchen.
ABC News World Headquarters in New York. This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. The NATO alliance admitted today that it was one of its own that mistakenly bombed ethnic Albanian civilians in Kosovo yesterday morning. No more blaming it on the Serbs. The Serbs have characterized NATO as being on a campaign against civilians. The government in Yugoslavia says that 75 civilians died yesterday and that there was more than one incident. The U.S. and its NATO partners are trying to keep the public focused on the overall mission. Our first report is from John McGuffey, who's at the Pentagon.
The planes were F-16 jet fighters, 2 of them patrolling the southern part of Kosovo. From their cockpits at 15,000 feet, they reported seeing villages on fire and refugees choking the roads. They flew in and out of low clouds, and officials say anti-aircraft fire was at times intense. This is a description by one of the pilots.
I work my way back up to the road, and I see another house that has just been set ablaze, and I spot a 3-vehicle convoy moving southeast.
The pilot asks his wingman to take a look to verify that what he is seeing is a group of 3 dark green military trucks.
I make several passes over these vehicles to ensure that they are, in fact, military vehicles. I make a decision at that point that these are the people responsible for burning down the villages that I've seen so far. I roll in, put my system on the lead vehicle, and execute a laser-guided bomb attack on that vehicle.
But today, NATO admitted the pilot made a terrible mistake.
The NATO bomb destroyed the lead vehicle, which we now believe to have been a civilian vehicle. I again stress, NATO deeply regrets the loss of life from this tragic accident.
There was no explanation for how highly trained pilots, so sure they were hitting dark green military trucks, could have instead struck red tractors or other civilian vehicles. It's especially embarrassing to Pentagon officials who seemed to be saying yesterday it could not happen.
Unless there's 100% assurance that what you're hitting is a military target, and I've been through this for years over there, you don't drop.
There are reports tonight that NATO bombs may have accidentally hit other concentrations of civilians in the same part of southern Kosovo. For U.S. and NATO officials, it is enormously frustrating, giving the Serbs a chance to point fingers at the West, while the Serb army continues to drive hundreds of thousands from their homes. John McWethy, ABC News, the Pentagon.
There is no question that whenever civilians are killed in a military campaign, it changes the complexion of war. The U.S. and its allies have said again today they have no quarrel with the Serb people. But especially given the isolation of the Serbs and the censorship they live with, a very large part of the population of Serbia has been alienated. ABC's Morton Dean is in Belgrade.
Scenes of the agony in Kosovo were quickly woven into anti-NATO propaganda on Serbian television. The NATO flag, then NATO planes, their flying formation turning into a Nazi swastika. The words, in English, "Who's next?" The story, without embellishment, is certainly useful to the Milosevic government. The story was headline news in all of the government-run daily newspapers. NATO planes attack Albanian refugees. NATO planes kill Albanian civilians. NATO planes attack a convoy of Albanian refugees. In Belgrade this evening, it was not difficult to find residents who may actually believe NATO's battle plan includes civilian targets.
I honestly believe that they are purposing targeting civilians.
One theory, that NATO may be harming civilians to then blame it on the Serbs.
maybe to show the world the different picture, to create a picture that we did that to the civilians. I don't know, really.
The NATO air campaign is continuing. One effect of the death of more civilians is to make people here in Belgrade wonder whether they may be next. Morton Dean, ABC News, Belgrade.
President Clinton, members of his cabinet today, NATO officials, they all said the same thing. The bombing was regrettable, but Slobodan Milosevic is ultimately the man who made it happen. The president, who is concerned that the accident might weaken public support for the air war, was in San Francisco today, trying to win support from newspaper editors. ABC's John Cochran is there.
As President Clinton arrived in San Francisco, demonstrators opposed to the air war used the accident to try to make their case. And sure enough, when the president met with the newspaper editors, the first question was,
did we screw up? You cannot have this kind of conflict without some errors like this occurring. This is not a business of perfection.
Throughout the NATO alliance, officials expressed outrage that Milosevic would call the accident an atrocity.
For him to talk about atrocities when an error occurred on the part of someone trying to carry out a mission to save their lives, I think is one of the most grotesque statements that I could conceive of.
How dare they now produce crocodile tears for people killed in the conflict which they themselves are responsible?
The president said the air campaign will go on as long as necessary.
If anyone thinks that this is a reason for changing our mission, then the United States will never be able to bring military power to bear again, because there is no such thing as flying airplanes this fast, dropping weapons this powerful, dealing with an enemy this pervasive, who is willing to use people as human shields and never have this sort of tragic thing happen.
Was the president saying that the civilians who were killed were being used as human shields? No, not necessarily, said White House aides, who added that no one knows whether the civilians were traveling alone or mixed in with military units. John Cochran, ABC News, San Francisco.
A little later in the broadcast, we'll take a closer look at the pressure on pilots in a combat situation, perhaps see how mistakes are made. There is a new rush of refugees out of Kosovo. More than 7,000 ethnic Albanians have crossed into Albania proper in the last 2 days, many of them arriving in very bad shape. Thousands more have poured into Macedonia. Tonight, a report from ABC's Jane Clayson on the Macedonian border. She tells us why they are leaving and what it says about the places they have left.
In the last 2 days, a huge surge of refugees, as many as 8,000, have crossed into Macedonia, and thousands more are waiting behind the border. Most of these people are from the same city, Jeroševac. They say they were systematically forced from their homes.
It's basically the same pattern we've seen for the last couple of days. They were in Jeroševac this morning, knock on the door at 5 a.m. The police and paramilitary and soldiers tell them to get out of their house.
And Serbian police apparently made no secret about why they wanted them to leave. They have filled our houses with soldiers, this woman says, because their barracks have been destroyed. They put tanks in our gardens and covered them with leaves. And then, she says, the police put mines around the houses. This man tells us the military took over every house in his neighborhood. They hid their ammunition and their weapons there, he says, so nobody would find them. Tonight, the people who once lived in Jeroševac say it is nearly emptied of Albanians now, as Serb troops settle into their town. Jane Clayson, ABC News, at the Macedonian border with Kosovo.
When we come back, a closer look at the mission.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by Boost Bars and Drinks.
Lively conversation every morning. Wrestling Sunday afternoons. Flower arranging weekends. Bike riding whenever. Boost daily. With essential vitamins and minerals, Boost is just one of those special things you do to take care of yourself. In bars and drinks, Boost, a nutritional part of this complete life.
Great meal. Uh-oh, gas pressure. What now? What else? Gas X, with the most powerful medicine for fast relief. Nothing works faster. Hey, want to go for ice cream? Gas X, the power to fight gas fast.
Boogie woogie, rumbling round, creamy, dreamy, rumbling round. It's got yogurt, blended right in, with the creamy taste of butter, you'll try it.
The goodness of yogurt, the creamy taste of butter with half the fat and calories. Must be Rumbling Brown.
No more excuses. Zyban is here. Prescription medicine, only available from your doctor. Ask your doctor about Zyban or call 1-888-650-PILL to find out more. Zyban. Now you have another choice.
Excuse me. We're going to take a closer look tonight at the bombing campaign against the Serbs. In a moment, we'll hear from our military analyst that based on the information we are getting from the Pentagon, there are serious questions about its effectiveness. As for the attack on ethnic Albanian civilians, it was not easy, as you heard earlier, sorting out the truth of what happened, but having learned that the pilot made a mistake, we wanted to know how hard it is to make a mistake. Here's ABC's Ned Potter.
Even in a cockpit crowded with electronics, an F-16 pilot can be very much alone. Listen again to the pilot who accidentally bombed those civilians.
I take my system, my targeting pod, and I make several passes over these vehicles to ensure that they are, in fact, military vehicles.
How did he decide that? He did have another pilot flying alongside to help choose targets and an infrared system to help tell them apart. But even so, pilots often pick their targets with the naked eye. At the same time, they're controlling the plane, looking at maps, and watching for anti-aircraft fire. Over Kosovo, in fact, they were flying almost 3 miles up to reduce the risk of getting hit.
There are certainly times when the fog of war, as they say, is such that quick-second decisions need to be made.
Many defense sources were reluctant to go on camera, but one said the F-16 is precisely the wrong kind of plane for this kind of bombing mission, because it goes so high and so fast.
One problem with flying high is underscored by the fact that you don't know what you're shooting at right away, because a truck looks an awful lot like an armored personnel carrier in some cases. So you can't distinguish between a civilian vehicle and a military vehicle in some cases.
Once the pilot has picked a target, he can use controls in the cockpit to aim a laser-guided missile at it. But its accuracy may only be as good as the judgment of the pilot, flying at high speeds under great pressure. Ned Potter, ABC News, New York.
And now a brief conversation with our military analyst, Tony Cordesman. He has monitored the defense establishment for many years, before which he was a member of it, and he has also worked for NATO. I must tell you, his analysis of this bombing campaign is daily reading for us. You actually say in your report to us that after 3 weeks of an intensive air campaign, NATO's phrase, only 102 targets have been hit.
What that really says is you've hit almost solidly at fixed targets. We haven't been able to really do damage to forces in the field. It's a very small number of targets, given the size of what's going on in terms of ethnic cleansing.
You're very critical of the effectiveness of the reporting on the air campaign, and you compare it in terms of its credibility to the body count reporting of Vietnam. What do you mean?
Well, part of the problem, Peter, is that we have targets reported as having severe damage without any analysis of what that means. Then we have a category that says destroyed. But almost all of the targets that we report on use this strange term, moderate damage. And moderate damage seems to have been defined so that if you hit it at all, it's a moderate damage.
You say in your report to us today, Tony, that the net impact of NATO operations may be to worsen the plight of the ethnic Albanians rather than paralyze the Serbian operations. That's very strong stuff.
I think the key problem here is we keep talking about cutting off supplies. We already know that these people have been dispossessed. We know that the Serbs are in the midst of ethnic cleansing. Now, what's going to happen as supplies run tight? And what's going to happen is they start using these people for human shields and find they're expendable. This kind of campaign may over weeks or months have an impact. But right now, in the middle of ethnic cleansing, it's far from clear that it's not doing more harm than good.
Our military analyst, Tony Cordesman. One last item here. ABC News has learned that the U.S. has asked NATO to stop and search all ships in the Adriatic Sea heading for Yugoslavia's ports. In particular, they're trying to find fuel and any other material on the way to help the Serb war effort. When we come back, DNA and death row. 2 more inmates win their freedom. And the 21st century kitchen. Technology on the cutting edge.
Every second, every minute, every hour. Your plants are nourished continuously when you use Osmocote plant food. Osmocote has extended time-release granules, so just one application, once a season, is all it takes. Osmocote plant food. All your plants need, all season long.
Our latest innovation springs from a very old idea, that heat cleans better. And so, Bissell introduces the first and only upright deep cleaner with an onboard heater. A common sense idea to make cleaning even cleaner. The new Power Steamer Pro Heat Plus from Bissell. Life's messy. Clean it up.
Some people call it retirement planning. I think of this as future construction. Year by year, block by block, until...
It's our dream house.
Beautiful. But I was hoping we could afford to travel. This plan can help make it happen. We can even make sure you've got worry-free income for life.
AXA, dynamic vision, equitable, a trusted resource. Call us. Equitable is a member of the Global AXA Group.
Ouch.
You stop brushing with Sensodyne every day. Your dentist said Sensodyne every day helps take pain away.
You know, sometimes I feel like I'm married a dentist.
Sensodyne every day. Now for whiter teeth, use new Sensodyne Extra Whitening every day.
While some folks couldn't sleep, you were peacefully sleeping thanks to new Simply Sleep from the makers of Tylenol PM. It's non-habit forming and eases you into a restful night's sleep. New Simply Sleep.
Some of the other news today in Salt Lake City, a man walked into the family history library of the Mormon church and opened fire with a handgun. Police surrounded the building, but the shooting continued for more than 45 minutes. 2 people were killed and 5 more wounded before the gunman was killed by police. In Oklahoma today, the case of misplaced blame and the missing person. 2 men convicted of murder were released from prison today, including one who had been on death row. It was DNA that set them free. And it is DNA that might convict the real criminal, if they can find him. Here's ABC's Mike Von Frem.
For inmate Ron Williamson, who had been on death row, today would be as good as it gets.
I feel fine. How are you this morning?
Williamson and his friend, Dennis Fritz, were convicted in 1987 for the brutal murder of Deborah Sue Carter. Prosecutors said lab tests connected both of them to hairs found on her body. Now, 12 years later, the new DNA tests proved their innocence.
There were no DNA profiles found on any of the evidence that we submitted to any of the labs that were consistent with either Mr. Fritz or Mr. Williamson.
The same prosecutor who asked a jury for the death sentence today asked that they be set free.
I believe it's incumbent based on the evidence that this case should be dismissed against them.
Williamson celebrated his release with his old friends, and Dennis Fritz thanked his daughter and mother for believing in his innocence.
It's made the difference in actually keeping me a whole person.
Attorney Barry Scheck arranged for the DNA tests, which freed the 2 men. And those tests strongly point toward a new suspect, a 38-year-old convict named Glenn Gore. But there's a new problem.
He's in escape status from the Department of Corrections.
Gore escaped yesterday. Mike Von Frem, ABC News, Ada, Oklahoma.
On the money tonight, the pressure of competition. Ford is getting closer to overtaking General Motors as the country's #1 car maker. Profits at both companies were up sharply in the first quarter of the year, but GM is losing market share while Ford is increasing production and adding models. In the toy business, Furby and the Teletubbies, made by Hasbro, are beating out Barbie and Tickle Me Elmo, made by Mattel. Profits by Hasbro were up 75% in the first quarter. Mattel is losing money and says it is going to cut 3,000 jobs. On Wall Street today, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was up 51 points to close at 10,462. On the NASDAQ, stocks were up about 14.5 points. When we come back, photons and magnets in the kitchen. Technology on the cutting edge.
I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places that this heart of mine embraces.
Have you seen Transitions lenses lately? Indoors, the changing tint is clearer. Outdoors, they're the darkest Transitions lenses ever. For all-day comfort and convenience, Transitions lenses, right in any light. Come to JCPenney Optical and save 40% on a complete pair of eyeglasses when you buy Transitions lenses.
1 minute Malox or Mylanta Supreme? Before you choose, you should know that Malox maximum strength neutralizes over twice as much acid. When you get heartburn, make it 1 minute Malox. The #1 choice of hospitals.
A proper gentleman eats one cookie at a time.
But these aren't cookies. They're Newtons.
Oh, we can't be proper all the time, now can we?
A cookie is just a cookie, but Newtons are fruit and cake. And now Fig Newtons are better than ever, because they're moister than ever.
Somewhere there's an empty chair at a seminar. The Civic sedan from Honda. What about now?
Here's a new idea. A pain reliever from Aleve that goes to work fast and lasts all day. Introducing new Aleve gel caps. Like most gel caps, they go to work fast, but Aleve gel caps do more than work fast. They have the strength to work all day long with just 2 pills. It would take 8 Tylenol to do that. Look, if your pain reliever starts fast but won't last, get one that does it all. New Aleve gel caps, 2 pills, all-day relief. Works for me.
Technology on the cutting edge. We are constantly marveling at how much is changing in our lives and how quickly. We think it's a fairly safe guess that whenever any of us focus on our lifestyle, the kitchen looms as a very important social center in our lives. No wonder that scientists and engineers are always trying to make it better. Here's ABC's Jack Smith with the latest.
When you think of kitchens, you think of this. Not this.
This is not a microwave.
No, it's a lightweight oven.
High tech is coming to the kitchen. The latest? Technology beyond the microwave that for the first time bakes with photons of light. This flash bake oven cooks from the outside and actually browns the food.
This is cooked as if it were cooked in an oven.
Exactly.
A conventional oven?
Conventional oven.
And this took how long?
8 minutes. Flash bake technology can do it in about half the time.
Appliances are getting safer, too. This breakthrough, called an induction stove, focuses a magnetic field above the burner. This energy boils water in 20 seconds, but won't burn anything else.
Not only will it not burn, but it actually won't get hot. The only thing that's getting hot is the contents of the pot.
But scientists are working on more than just better appliances. They want to make the whole kitchen smart.
Today we're going to be making double chocolate fudge, so we click here on where it says double chocolate fudge.
This is an experimental smart kitchen countertop. A computer is connected to under-the-counter sensors that read tags on food packaging. The screen is then able to guide you through a recipe.
And tells you how much to put in the bowl.
Yep. You can take it to a degree where your kitchen, you can go to your kitchen and say, well, what have I got in the pantry? What can I have for dinner?
The kitchen of the future may be high-tech, but it still has to be stocked with food, and shopping is pretty low-tech. But breakthroughs are about to change this mundane chore as well. Supermarket checkouts can be streamlined with technology like this new produce scanner that actually recognizes the food you put down and prices it.
It's using optics technology similar to a photocopier.
And then recognizing it with what's in its memory.
Absolutely.
Increasingly, however, consumers will be able to shop at home. This new fridge has a computer in it, lets you scan the food you need and order it over the internet.
And what's going to happen in the very near future is the packaging is going to be intelligent, so that when I'm 1/3 of my milk carton left,
the milk carton itself will announce that I am almost empty and add myself to the shopping list.
Everything we use may become smart, even ingredients etched with the recipes needed to cook them. Technology is finally turning its attention to the kitchen. Jack Smith, ABC News, Boston.
Well, let's get as far away from the kitchen as we can. Astronomers have confirmed today that there's another solar system out there, the first one ever discovered beyond our own. They have identified 3 planets circling the star Upsilon Andromeda, 44 light years from Earth. That's about 250 trillion miles. As for the possibility of life, scientists will only say that for carbon-based life like ours, the planets are at the right distance from their sun. Anything about the type of life beyond that is mere speculation. And someone will undoubtedly speculate. Be back in just a moment.
Overactive bladder.
Those strong, sudden urges.
Going to the bathroom so often.
Wedding accidents.
Discover prescription Detrol. Detrol is proven effective to treat overactive bladder. Detrol reduced bathroom visits by 2.2 times in 24 hours versus 1.1 times with a sugar pill.
Stay a little longer? Love to.
1.2 fewer wedding accidents occurred with Detrol versus 0.8 fewer with a sugar pill. Similar decreases over 24 hours. Do not take Detrol if you have certain types of stomach, urinary, or glaucoma problems. The most common side effect is dry mouth at 39.5% for Detrol versus 15.9% for sugar pill. Common but less frequent ones may include dry eyes, headache, constipation, and indigestion.
Head back? Not right now.
For more product information, call us or ask your doctor about prescription Detrol. Proven effective to treat overactive bladder.
Brad, I asked my doctor about Detrol.
What do you dream of when you dream of nothing? Nothing for a down payment. Nothing for a first month's payment. Nothing for a security deposit. For a total of nothing due at lease signing on Oldsmobile's award-winning Intrigue for a limited time with a lease offer of $299 a month. Call toll-free for details. Intrigue by Oldsmobile. Think nothing. Start something.
Tonight, it's your body. Should you be able to do what you want with it?
Consenting adults, absolutely.
Should drugs and prostitution be legal? Sex, drugs, and consenting adults with John Stossel. An ABC News special tonight at 10, 9 Central.
Coming up next on Channel 2 News, police use deadly force after a Beaverton man rushes them and opens fire. And the Oregon coast pays the price for harsh winter weather. I'm Steve Dunn, News in the Northwest. Coming up next.
Just a brief review of our top story. NATO says that an American pilot accidentally bombed ethnic Albanian refugees yesterday. NATO says the pilot believed he was attacking a military convoy. According to the Serbs, 75 people died in more than one attack. The message from the president and his cabinet today, in the end, it is Slobodan Milosevic who is the man responsible. That is our report on World News Tonight. Later on Nightline, why many Russians hate America. I'm Peter Jennings. Have a good evening. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Tomorrow, he blasted the boundaries of American music, the legacy of Duke Ellington, the century on Friday. Watch ABC's World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC.